They finished my pond and I've gotten my bill. There's been a few questions about my pond, and the biggest one that I've gotten is how much is it? First I'll tell you the estimate they gave me, and then I'll tell you the cost, which is significantly below the estimate they gave me. But I also wanted to cover in this video some other questions that I've gotten. What are you going to use this pond for? What are the purposes of the pond? What is the pond maintenance? How long do you expect it to take to fill up? There are a huge number of uses for ponds. The ones that I miss, I would love for you to comment down below. First off, it is a huge home for life. What we're trying to do here on our homestead is to build up the soil. We're trying to nurture the life in the soil. And a pond is going to be great for wildlife and for that bacteria and the biome and whatnot. It's far different than a pool. So you've got to add all that chlorine, you've got to add the shock to it, you've got to make sure the pump has electricity to it all the time, you've got to change that filter out, empty the filter, and you have to backwash. And I'm not a huge fan of caring for the pool and maintaining the pool like that. So we have a pond instead, and one of the reasons we got the pond was to swim in it. And I know it's not entirely the same swimming in a pond as it is swimming in a pool. You can already look behind me, you can see the water is very dirty. I believe that dirt that's in there now, how dirty it is gonna settle down to the bottom. That's not always going to be like that. One of the main reasons we dug it was to swim in it, but we can also use it for irrigation. This is water catchment that we can use for irrigation. In the future, it's this water reservoir, and water is life. One of the permaculture principles is to save as much water as you can. So we're not in a shortage of water in Western Kentucky. However, having water is a really great thing. We're also planning on using it not only for swimming and irrigation, but also probably will end up putting fish in it at some point. I'm not going to stock huge amounts of fish in it because it is a relatively small pond. It's probably about a half acre, 3/4 of an acre. If we would have made it much bigger, it would have cost us a bit more to build a levee, because they already hit some rock as they were building this. So that's why they didn't build it even deeper. But we might dig another pond in the future. The more ponds I think we have, the better. As far as maintaining the pond, those were the three main uses: water catchment and irrigation, fish to have another food source, and then swimming in it. I would love to hear any other ideas that you might have for use for the pond, or ways that I can justify the expense of the pond. I would love for you to comment those down below. There were also questions about algae growth and how to prevent that. There is that, in order to keep it from getting mucky and all sorts of algae in it, that treatment that you can give to it once a year. I was thinking about aerating the pond, but I don't know for sure if I'll do that or not yet. I would love to have your feedback down below. One of the men who dug it for us, he said he has about a 3 or 4 acre pond, and he doesn't use an aerator. People swim in it, it has fish in it. It's not stinky, it's pretty clear water whenever he puts that treatment in it once a year. I'm not too worried about that in the future. As far as how to prevent that, I don't really have a whole lot of ideas. I initially was going to go with a natural swimming pool. I was going to put some plants in it in order to kind of filter the water. I don't know for sure if I'll do that anymore. I want to try to keep it clean. There is still maintenance for a pond. It's just not the same amount and same type of maintenance as it is for a swimming pool. The biggest use that we want from it is to use it as a swimming pool, because we love to cool down in water in the summertime. You might think there's no maintenance to this, but there is maintenance to it. It's just a different kind and a different amount of maintenance. They suggested keeping this mowed very well all around the levee. You see the levee behind me right up there. Keeping that mowed very well, keeping all the trees out of it, because trees can poke holes in the levee. How long do we expect for it to take to be filled up? There's not a whole lot of property that feeds into it. I would say maybe only a couple of acres max. It's not going to fill up very quickly. I'm confident that by next summer that it will be filled up, for a couple of different reasons. One, we do get a lot of rain here in Western Kentucky, so all of that rain will come into it, and we do have some of it that's going to flow into it from around it. Right now the water's running into it. Our kids love playing in water. We have a trampoline over here. We don't have a shortage of water. There are a lot of places in the world that do have a shortage of water, but we aren't one of those. They play with it all the time over near the house. We're telling them to play with it over here now. So we've already moved the trampoline over here. We've got a hose that's coming over here from where the water is now until we get the water trenched over here. So we're gonna have them play with the water over here where it'll flow into the pond. And you can already see some of the little trenches of the water flowing in from a rain that we've gotten, and from the water from the trampoline as well. So I expect by this next summer, or by this next spring, over winter and early spring, it will fill up completely with water. and then we may stock it with fish next year. I had a dream initially of putting cattails in the pond and lily pads and things like that, but I've heard negatives about those things as well. They can make your pond really messy, and I don't want that. So I don't know. If you have any suggestions about that, I would love to hear down below. Now, the thing you've been waiting for, how much did it cost us? The estimate for it was $8,000 to $10,000. And I know that seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but this was an investment that we were making in our farm and in our future and for our kids as well. And as I've already said, the actual cost of it was significantly lower than that. They told me that it was around $120 an hour for the dozer and about $240 an hour for the track hoe. And they were on it for, I don't know, four and a half days, something like that. And that initially was the estimate for just the pond. Around us, they also cleaned around over here. They cleared a bunch of these trees. I've already told you about the dozer pile. They cleaned a bunch of these little trees out of here, so we'd have this nice big area. In addition to that, they got this pad that's behind the camera ready for a big project that's coming up. The entire cost that I paid was for that pad being made ready for a future project that we'll tell you about very soon, and this other area that they dozed down some trees and got this all flat and level for us, so I wouldn't have to do that in the future. So the total cost for everything that they did was $6,700. But I asked them what the cost for, if anybody asked me about the pond itself, and they said probably the pond itself cost just over $4,000. We've been saving that money for a while in order to do this. We decided that it's time to pull the trigger and spend the money for the pond itself. That was clearing all this area where the trees were here. That's digging up the dirt, pushing up the levee. That is the spillway that's over here as well. All the work that they did for the pond alone was just over $4,000, and then everything they did was $6,700. I hope I answered all your questions. I would be glad to answer any more if you have any more about the pond. Also, I would love to have your feedback and hear your suggestions for what to do with the pond. Aeration, plants in it, plants around it for a dock. We were thinking about building a dock, but we're thinking about not doing that anymore. Pond toys. And they started 1 week ago today, and they would have finished last week if I hadn't had them do a couple of extra things while they were here. And I might have them come back. We also want to build a pole barn, and we might have them level up that area whenever we burn this dozer pile. Have them, while they're here, push it back in as they're here. I feel like what they did was very reasonable. If you like things like this, like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, select all so you never miss a notification. We do things, all sorts of things here. Not all of them are as big and exciting as a pond being dug and some dozers being hired, but minor improvements and all little things. If you stick with us on this journey, in a few years you're going to see a huge difference, and you're going to see things that are going on here that we've been planting seeds for a while, and it finally comes to fruition in just a little while. Thanks for coming.